So in order to do a great research project, it is vital that you know the delimitation of your project, or in other words, what the scope of your research project is. If you don't know the scope of your research project, your research will end up being very superficial and unfocused. You don't know what methods or participants to use for your research. You don't know what to prioritize, and you'll be overwhelmed with too much information. And you'll have too much to write about when you only have a certain number of pages and a certain amount of time to do your research. The scope of your research is also very important to include in the research paper itself, because it lets the reader know what to expect from the research paper, and it helps them understand why you have chosen to look at this specific aspect but not this specific aspect. If you want more tips about how to improve your research paper, I have this video for you. But in this video, we're going to focus on how to narrow the scope of your research. Okay, so you most likely have a general topic for your research. That can either be very concrete or it can be more conceptual. And examples could be something like grades in school, or power dynamics, or nursing homes, or gender roles. I hope you get the point. Maybe you have this general thing you have to work within. But the thing is, a general topic doesn't say a lot in itself. Because when you hear a topic like gender roles, you're like, what about it? And that's the question, what about it? What is it that makes it interesting? What is it that makes it worth researching? What is the interesting part here? What is it that's at stake here? And that's one of the things that we'll find out by looking at the delimitations of your research project. So I have 4 parameters that we need to look at, and now you don't have to do these in order. You kind of have to go back and forth between them to find the right setting for each of them. But just for the sake of clarity, we're just going to take one at a time. Okay, so the first parameter is about time. What time period are you working with? Are you working with the present time, or are you working 100 years ago? Or do you have a historical perspective, so you are working with something from this time till this time and how something developed within that? The second thing we need to look at is location. That can be very concrete and very specific, or it can be a little broader. So for instance, it can be a specific building, or it can be more broad, so it can be within a specific city or a specific country or a specific continent. The important thing is, of course, that you're just very clear about what location you are working with. So for the third parameter, we're looking at who your main subjects or who your main participants are. Whose worldview, whose experience is it that you are actually looking to understand? So narrow down your main subjects. That doesn't mean that you're not going to talk to anyone else but those main subjects, but it will help you focus on whose perspective is that you're actually trying to understand here. And now for the fourth parameter, and that's about what issue it is that you want to discuss. And to help you answer this question, you can ask yourself, what larger theoretical or societal context are you putting your research topic in? So now that you've gone through these 4 parameters, you might need to tweak some of them a little bit to make them all more coherent and make sense as a whole. The important thing is that you have these 4 parameters as a tool for you to guide and to focus your research project. These might be very simple parameters to work with, but they are so important because they'll help you focus and prioritize what to read, what methods to use, what theories to use, and what participants you need to include. So as a rule of thumb, I think that every time you expand on a parameter or you dial a little on one parameter, you have to ask yourself, what is the point of making that change? How will it affect some of the other parameters? Will I need to let something else go so my scope will not be too big? And finally, you have to ask yourself, what is my time frame? If I expand this parameter, will I have time to actually research all that expansion entails? This video is not over yet, but give it a like if you're already a little bit more clear on how to narrow the scope of your research. Now, there are 2 additional points that I want to make about narrowing down your research scope. The first thing is that you need to consider how much time you have to do your research. The less time you have, I would recommend that you go a little more specific. That doesn't mean that just because you have a lot of time that your research scope should be that much bigger, because even though you are very specific, you can get a lot of data from a very specific research scope. But it's just saying that if you have a short amount of time, try to also focus it down as much as you can to something very concrete. And the other thing I think you should consider is if you need or want to use a specific theory or specific concepts, that you need to also frame your research scope in a way that allows those concepts and theories to shine. Of course, it's a little bit of a backwards way of doing research, but I know that in a lot of courses, you have a general topic or theory that you need to work with, and you have to go out there in the world and try to find somewhere where you can use this theory or topic. To help you come closer to narrowing down your specific research scope, I've created this very practical fill-in-the-blank worksheet. It will help you become specific about what it is that you're researching and will work as a guideline for you throughout your research project. You can check the description on how to get a hold of it. Now the video is not over yet. Now the video is not over yet. Now this video is not over yet. Now this video is not over yet. This video is not over yet. These might be very simple parameters. Okay, so the first parameter